Moment, ich mache Audio an.
Ah, now I see it.
Ja. Jetzt läuft er.
See, I believe the recording has started. There we go. All right.
Okay. Good evening, everybody out there. Here we are. This is our joint forces meetup with George and Thomas beside me. Welcome to you both, and thanks, George, for initiating this idea and discussing it, involving us into this meetup, so that we have the opportunity to have a nice talk and evening with you out there, and you, George, for sure. George.
Well, always happy to join meetups with you. It's always a pleasure. Thank you for all these great infrastructure things, right? It's very cool seeing that. So, I share my screen.
Well, first of all, we have to have Thomas also to say some hello to our folks, and maybe every one of you may introduce yourself a little, so that folks are knowing whom they are seeing and listening to here.
All right. So I'll start. My name is Thomas. I'm part of the Azure DEV meetup together with Ralf. I'm only here for to look beautiful and to set the stage for Ralf and George today. We're going to do most of the talking and presenting the topics. So I'm really looking forward to hearing those two great sessions.
Yes, and it's a very great honor to have you on site, George. Maybe a few words about yourself.
Definitely. I was planning to do that share slide, but I can do it.
Oh, yeah, okay, no problem. We can do it either with your talk then, so no issue. We go ahead there. So the program for tonight will be George will have his talk about doing some Docker container stuff, deploying it by Azure DevOps at the end, I guess. Is it right?
Exactly.
I will talk a little about Azure Static Web Apps.
Quickly. Sorry, we have a lot of echo apparently. So there seems to be some issue in the sound.
I'm supposed to close the window. That should do it.
Okay. I hope it's better now. Still,
is it okay now?
Do we still have an issue with it? No, I guess we're doing right, huh?
We can't hear Thomas.
I muted myself just in case. But
it's okay.
The problem is that the delay on the stream.
Yeah.
So I hope they let us know once it's fixed. Last they wrote still an issue.
Yeah. Can you double check it by yourself on the stream, maybe, for instance? Let me see. So I
will get my headset. So
oh, it's not the computer sound. Believe me.
It sounds like the sound is being played twice.
Okay, yeah, that's really an issue. By yourself on the stream, maybe, for instance. Okay, here we are. Let me see. So okay, that's funny. So if I'm talking, it's all clear. But if you're talking, it sounds like having an echo there.
What about now?
Oh, it's not the computer sound. Believe me.
It sounds like the sound is being played twice.
Okay, yeah, that's really an issue. By yourself on the stream, maybe, for instance. Okay, here we are. Let me see. So no, it's the. That's funny. So if I'm talking, it's all clear. But if you're talking, it sounds like having an echo there. Okay. Can you talk again, Thomas, please?
Sure. Test.
That's great. The folks out there have fun.
Still echo.
Yeah, echo. I know. I cannot see where the issue is.
Oh, du bist auf den Sound.
Yeah. Yet. Okay. Now I've got it. It's funny because the sound is not dedicated to a single NDI signal, so it is on all over. So I have to mute all the NDI streams. That should be fixed now. Okay, now I've got it. It's funny because the sound is not dedicated to a single NDI signal, so it is on all over. So I have to mute all the NDI
Let's see
streams.
if it works now.
That should be
Because
fixed
for
now.
Ralf, they were able to hear you fine, but not us.
Yes, I know. That's the issue. Now I've muted you all, and hopefully it's working now. So the test. I'm waiting for your test. Technology is so nice if it's working. Ne, still auch mit einem Test ist das Mist. Es echot immer. Okay. Sag nochmal was, Thomas.
Hallo, 1, 2, 3.
Okay. That should work now. Mist. Es echot immer. Okay. Sag nochmal was, Thomas. Yeah, okay. Now we're ready set. Sorry, folks, for this issue. It's first time we're using NDI, and we hadn't a chance to check it out before on how it looks like on the stream. So that's fixed now. Sorry for any inconvenience. If you feel you have to blame me, I'm okay with that. I'll take over that responsibility for sure. I'm so sorry. So talked enough, I guess. I think George, would you talk a little bit about your talk tonight? So sure. Okay, cool.
Well, we're going to see how to use Azure DevOps actually to build the deploy and Docker image to Azure. So we're going to go through some basic stuff about YAML files, about the Dockerfile, and then how to use that in order to build it and push it in Azure. We're going to use Azure App Service, a web app, to host our service and see our data live. And we are going to also use Azure Container Registry, which will host our images, our Docker images.
Cool.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting, I think.
Cool. My talk about Azure Static Web Apps will bring you to why I'm using Blazor for it, what is Azure Static Web Apps, and where is it used for, and what different ways do we have to work with Azure Static Web Apps. I'll go into that with a small demo, and I hope that the time will reach out for that. Since this is a demo, since this is a meetup and we do not have a follow-up after my talk, I can go a little bit over time. Whoa. What's that?
George ist nach wie vor fast nicht zu hören.
Hm?
Es ist George nicht zu hören auf dem Stream.
Okay. the time will reach out for. Okay. Go ahead, George. I will hand over to you.
Thank you. Should I unmute myself? I already did, but it will be okay, right? Super. I'm sharing my screen already. This is the initial screen anyway, but I will move to the next slide. Give me a second. I should be already there, which is our talk for the day, right? How to use Azure DevOps to build and deploy a Docker image to Azure. Now, before we go there, just a few things about me. Yeah, the plan changed a bit. It was Ralf asked me to talk about me initially, but yeah, you know, this sort of misunderstanding. I'm George Kosmidis. I worked as a software architect here in Munich for TechCycle Solutions, and I organized Munich.NET Meetup and Munich TypeScript Meetup. Now, that's my Twitter account, George Kosmidis, my name and my surname, and I have that over there because you might want to reach out and ask any questions, although you can do it in any of those accounts included there, and of course from the meetup.com platform. Now, this is a plan of what we're going to see today. We are going first to create, we're not going to do that because we don't have enough time, and I assume everybody knows how to create a simple .NET Core app. You most probably have your own anyway, but we are going to see how to add a Dockerfile, either for creating a new app or for an old one that we already have. Then we're going to use Azure DevOps. I'm going to push the code to Azure DevOps Repos. If we have time at the end, we'll see we're going to do that too, but I assume you all more or less know about Git, so I'm going to skip that test to make that step, to make things faster. And of course, then access our repo with Azure DevOps Pipelines, get the code, get the Dockerfile, get everything we need, build it, and push it to Azure Container Registry. And at the end, we are going to use Azure App Service, a web app, to pull with continuous deployment everything necessary. I have a check here too, to deploy the app to the web. Now, how we already said that more or less we are not going to create a .NET Core app. We're going to see how to add Docker support, and we're going to talk a bit about the Dockerfile. We're going to set up Azure Container Registry first, then Azure DevOps, and then the web app. Why? Because each step requires the previous. We could start and from Azure DevOps or web app and stop our work and then restart, but I think that way is kind of more straightforward. We're going to use, won't need Azure DevOps, Azure Container Registry in our Azure DevOps pipelines. So we're going to set up this first. And we're going to need the Azure DevOps and the image actually in our Azure Container Registry in order to set up Azure Web App. So that's more or less the order. They have here some prerequisites. Some might sound too obvious, but yeah, I have it because this presentation is not only for the .NET Core Meetup, some .NET Core basic understanding, especially if we go to the hands-on, if we have time for a sample, that would be useful. You know, though, that using Docker, we are not limited to .NET Core, but I'm going to use Visual Studio anyway for the Dockerfile. Some basic Git knowledge. This we're going to skip it completely. I don't think we'll have time for to see how we will push the image to the our code to Azure DevOps Repos. Anyway, it could be useful. Basic Docker knowledge, that would be necessary, although we'll go through the Dockerfile. If you want a reminder, under that address that I have there, you can find a cheat sheet, which was always useful for me, especially if I had a long time of doing Docker files, then it could be useful. At the end, of course, an Azure DevOps account and an Azure account, although you will not need it for this presentation, you will need it to actually apply what you will see today. So let's start and let's create a .NET Core web app and add Docker support. Now, how are we going to do that? When we start creating a new .NET Core app, we at some point reach this screen, what we see here. And here we have this easy self-explanatory button, enable Docker, checkbox, sorry, enable Docker. We can also choose if it is a Linux or what is the environment that we want to use, but we are not going to get into there yet because it's .NET Core. Use whatever you want. So we either do that, or if we already have a project, we can right click in our project, then go to add, then go to Docker support, and we have a Docker file added to the root of our project, which is this one. This is the default. This is exactly how Microsoft, how Visual Studio adds it, right? So, and this is the location. It is within the main project, the Azure Docker CS Proj for this project, for this solution. Now, yeah, that's it over there. Now, there is a small problem, and this is the reason mainly why we want to make some changes to this Docker file that we see behind us. The problem is that the Visual Studio context is there, is the solution, and we already have a folder, an Azure Docker folder for the project, but our Docker file is here, right? And when we push an image, when we will push that to Azure DevOps, and we'll ask Azure DevOps to get the Docker file and run it, executes it, it doesn't live within this folder, it lives here. So yeah, we need to make some changes mostly because of this. So let's go and see. What do we do first? We have the runtime that we want to use, .NET 5, and the SDK. We want both. Maybe I'm going a bit ahead now, but we need both runtime and SDK. The runtime, of course, we need it as the final stage of our multi-stage Dockerfile because we want to actually run our solution optimized, right? We want to have the smallest possible size, so we want the runtime that includes all kinds of optimizations. One other reason is that the SDK actually by default runs your application in port 5000 and 5001. So we would need some additional mapping there. For production though, we need 80 and 443. So runtime is the one that we want to use. Now, two things that we can do. First of all, line 4, the workdir directive. We can remove that completely. Why? We can leave that, or we can remove that completely. It's not a problem because if you can, as you can see, when we continue our stage or we create another one, this final stage actually, we are again setting up the workdir to be up. So actually, line 4 is not that much needed, at least for that Docker file there. The other one at line 10, sorry, we are deleting Azure Docker. We're removing that path for the exact same reason that we talked before, right? For this reason. So we want to be in there, in the folder that we are actually in the folder that contains the CS Proj. Last but not least, we need to change the order of these two commands. Assumingly, if we were like before, in line 9, we are setting up the workdir to be source, and we are outside, so we are seeing an Azure Docker file in front of us, and that's why we can copy everything. But now, since we are living inside, we should live inside the Azure Docker folder, we should first set up our workdir to be in that, where we exactly copied or anyway restored our Nugget packages in order to copy all the rest of the data. So we can now go line by line and see what we have. As we've seen before, we are pulling .NET Core 5 runtime. We are exposing 80 and 443 because we're going to run with the runtime and not with the SDK. Starting a new stage, and we are pulling SDK, the SDK. We are setting now the workdir to be source, and we are copying the CS Proj that contains the directive to restore all the Nugget packages to that workdir, right? So we are copying, I hope you can see my mouse. We are copying CS Proj, and actually I can do that. I can write it here. We are copying the Azure Docker CS Proj, this thing, in here, which here should be Azure sorry for my nice letter. I can write that good. Azure Docker, this one thing. I don't want to write it all. So we are copying the CS prods right there, and then we are restoring. So we are pulling any kind of dependencies we might have. I don't think this project had any, but anyway. Then we are setting up the work there to be source Azure Docker, right? Exactly where this is, where this file is now. And we are copying everything we had up until now to the source Azure Docker. And then, since we also copied the CS files and everything, we can run .NET build for that CS prods and actually build everything. I know this is again an unnecessary step because right after in line 18 we publish again the CS prods and we are building it before we publish, but this could be useful if you had multiple CS prods to run and build and you wanted some sort of testing to see if everything is actually building. Anyway, here line 17, and you know I have some nice arrows. I don't know why I'm not using them. Line 17, start another stage. This is the publish stage, which we run .NET publish, and now we are redirecting the results here. We are saving everything here in app publish. And at the end, almost at the end, we are at the final stage. We create another stage, another stage named final. We are setting up now the work tier to be up. This is the work tier, right? And we are copying everything from the publish stage, which is this one, whatever we had in the app publish, so that folder here, to the current folder, which is app, right? And then at the end, we are just defining the entry point, what should be run. So that is more or less the Dockerfile and the changes that we need to make. Of course, you can find multiple ways of actually doing exactly the same. And some of these commands are indeed unnecessary here. But yeah, this is a simple project. There is no no dependency or anyway, not any other assembly that we build with the main assembly. So yeah, it looks fine. So that was it. That was the part that we will create a .NET Core app. We didn't, but we added the Dockerfile. Next step, let's build, store, secure, scan, replicate, and manage our Docker images. Of course, we're not going to do all this. This nice promo. I don't remember where I find it, probably in Azure site. But what we're going to do is actually store our images in Azure Container Registry. And how are we going to do that? First, we visit portal.azure.com and we have that thing over here as the first screen. There is a convenient search bar on top, this one, and we can use that to actually write Container Registry. This is what we want. We get this screen as a result, this drop-down menu, suggestion, I don't know how you want to call it. And actually, when I was creating these slides, the Container Registry was third as a result in the marketplace. Don't ask me why. Some other times it was first. So we're clicking the Container Registry and we're getting this into this very familiar screen where we can start creating our resource. First thing that we can see here is the subscription. We can choose whatever subscription we want. Of course, our head was using that one, to be honest. I don't know, for the presentation. Resource group. This is always a good idea to create a resource group and group all your resources under one resource group so you can easily manage them. I created this Azure Docker resource and that is it. Clicked OK and that is it. Now, registry name. This is our registry name. It will be under azuredocker.azurecr.io. Choose whatever you want there. And the location. The location, again, you choose anything you want. I think if you choose US Central, you can get some free SKUs. I'm not sure, but you can search a bit on that. I think I tried with US Central, so yeah. Availability zones, I don't think most of you will use it, but Yeah, maybe it's actually a high availability offering to a container registry in a specific region. So in that region that we will that Azure will deploy our registry specified by the location, right? At the end, we choose our SQIHO standard. It's nice to know that the difference in SKUs do not mean any any difference in programmatic capabilities. Any SKU gets the same programmatic capabilities, but it has difference like more performance or scalability and stuff, right? So done. That was it. Very easy. We click review and create. I don't have the next review plus create. I don't have the next screen. The next screen was just a review, and it was it's also writing if you have any kind of mistake or any error. Next screen, we click again review, and we go. We don't go here actually. Give me a second. You actually go here, right? Not here. Initial screen, you can see a warning top right corner that says that your resource is being built, blah, blah, blah. At some point it will be ready, and you can find it again by typing the name of the resource here or your container registry, and then you will find the resources here. When I created that, of course, I didn't have any kind of resources here. I don't know why I'm not writing. I should be able to circle that. Let's hope now. Okay, not a nice color, but it is what it is. So you write a container registry name or the container registry, you find your resource, and then actually you go to the first screen, give me a second, of this Azure Docker container registry. That's my name, Azure Docker. That's the name of the registry. You're going to overview, but to this screen, I mean the first one over here. But again, I can try it. Finally, I can. But you need to click access keys and go here and enable the admin user. Now, although the admin account is designed for a single user to access the registry, mainly for testing purposes, in order to be able to use the current registry from the app service, from the web app that we will create later, and select source and continuous deployment, the admin user must be enabled, right? So that's it. That was it. The only thing besides creating the resource is to do that one, enable the admin user. Now we are ready. I'm going as fast as I can. We are ready to go to Azure DevOps, which is a bit more interesting. Although, again, we don't need to do much. So let's use Azure DevOps to build, test, and push our Docker image to Azure Container Registry. I skipped the part that we are creating a project in Azure Docker because I think it's kind of easy to do. You're just selecting public or private, and I don't right now remember the difference. I think the difference is on performance and actually how many pipelines you can run at the same time. We can search about that later because it's changed at some point, and I'm not sure where it is right now. But anyway, right here, what we see here is that we created already a project named Azure Docker. That's our project, right? That's the first screen that we see when we visit our project. And the first thing that we need to do actually is go to project settings, click on that. Then we see that screen. And actually, in order to reach this Azure DevOps services here, yeah, project settings, we need to scroll down. So these Azure DevOps services are a bit lower than the initial screen, than the one that you see. Anyway, you scroll down, you see that. For us now, we're not going to use boards. So we can disable them. Boards, it's a very interesting, very nice alternative to Jira, or I don't know what you're using for agile planning and boards and yeah, monitoring the progress of your project, your sprints. It's a very nice alternative, and you're using Azure DevOps. That's cool. That's cool. Unfortunately, it's my work. We are still using Jira, and it's kind of hard. I didn't find a way. Maybe if you have an advice there, to migrate everything we had in Jira into boards, because that could be a solution. Now, losing all that history that we have there, it's, yeah, not an easy choice. Anyway, I disabled boards. We're not going to use them for this project. I enabled repos. We're not going to see them in this presentation. And I enabled pipelines. Now, that's it. There is no save or anything. We're just going to click Azure Docker, and we're not going to come here, of course. This is the create pipeline. We're going to go to this first screen over here. But this time, that first screen that we're going to see will contain, where is it? Will contain the Azure DevOps. Again, it's not writing, the Azure repos, sorry, and the pipelines. We click in pipelines, and then we are in this screen where, rather easy, yeah, we go to pipelines. Rather easy, we need to click create a pipeline, right? Wizard like, this is a window that pops up on top of this page. So it starts asking us where your code is. There are many places that you can host your code. GitHub, of course, is something very common. But an interesting thing is that you can have any kind of generic Git repository that, of course, Azure Pipelines can access, right? I chose Azure repos to host my code. So it's over there. I click on it. It's rather easy because if you choose anything else, you need to create a service connection between those two services. We're gonna see that later, I think, if I remember correctly. But yeah, for now, nothing is. We don't need to do anything. The only thing that I need to do, it remembers the line anyway. The only thing that I need to do is see our repositories here. It's only one for this account, Azure Docker. We are selecting it, and we're going to the next very interesting screen. And allow me, actually, where is my mouse right now? Allow me to delete this line here because it's really annoying. So, pipelines. You can have anything you want. You can easily build universal Windows platforms app. So you can build Xamarin. Some words are kind of difficult for no reason. You can build .NET Framework. You can build .NET desktop applications. And of course, you can also choose this one, which builds and pushes our image directly to Azure Container Registry. So everything like of looks very well, binds very well, interacts. Yeah, maybe that's a better word. So we click on that one, and there Azure DevOps can see our subscriptions in Azure. It's Azure, right? Our subscriptions are common everywhere. So it can see our subscriptions, but if you click continue, it cannot actually see what they contain. We need to give some kind of permissions to do that. And this is where a wizard starts. I don't have the entire part, but this kind of window pops up, a new window actually. You need to sign in into Azure, give permission. Azure will ask you, do you want to give permissions to Azure DevOps to access your blah, blah, blah registries? You will say yes. And that action over here, which is again very easy, part of this wizard, will create a service connection in the project settings. We might have time to see it later, might not, I don't know, because it's already 6:36. Cool. I should be finished by now, but anyway. Yeah, thank you. Once we done that, then Azure DevOps is able to take a look into our Azure account and get all container registries over there. There is a drop-down menu. You can select the Azure Docker, the image name based on the Azure Docker, based on the selection, and the actually on the repo is filled in automatically. Same for the Dockerfile, and that's, we don't need to do anything else, only that wizard-like process of giving access to Azure DevOps to our Azure account. Validate and configure, most probably we'll have no problem at all. And we finally see for the first time our YAML file. So sorry for this, but today the day was full of meetings and I didn't stop talking yet. So my throat is kind of dry. Well, YAML file, right? One thing that you might want to do as a side note, it's not very important, of course, is to change the name of the Azure Pipelines.yaml file. And why? Because most probably in production, in a real life project, you will need more than one YAML files. You will have one for the develop branch and one for hot fixes, or I don't know, the master branch to production, I don't know. So you will need more. And if you allow that to Azure DevOps, the naming, I mean, then the next YAML file will be Azure-pipelines-1, -2, -3, kind of not understandable. You can change it later, but it's kind of a more, just a bit more complicated process. Right now, we have a one-time offer to change it here without any complexity. I didn't do it. I'm just showing that because we're only going to use one YAML file anyway. So let's go back. Sorry. Sorry for that. What do we see here in this YAML file? Initially, that's a very common YAML file, right? I see my mouse. I confused me. That's the print screen. It also contained my mouse. That's okay. So we see the trigger. What would be the branch that will trigger that? The master. What will be the repo? Some variables. We're going to see them later. And here, the interesting part starts. It's, yeah, line 22. Anyway, the stages, which I have here. My screen wasn't big enough. So the stages, they should be stages. If you ask me, a cleaner YAML file would have two separate stages, one that builds and one that pushes the image to the Azure Container Registry. For now, it's all one, but what can you do? It is what it is. It's working perfectly. Now, these are the variables that we've seen before, right? We are using the Ubuntu latest as our image to build, that the VM image. We are using Azure Docker as our repository name. We are using that Docker file over there. And we are using that container registry in our Azure account. And finally, we have a tags here. This is one thing that we might want to notice more. The tag actually, sorry for this. The tag actually is a build number. It's an auto increment, not auto increment. It's an always increment number. So every time it will be the next number. And this is useful to identify which is the last build that you did, but it's not very useful to identify always one tag that will contain with other things the last build, right? So a nice idea for that is to add the tag latest over there. That's the only addition that you need to make here, add the tag latest. To be honest, I would think that Microsoft should have done that already. I'm not very sure. Most probably there is a very good reason, but I don't know it. You need to add that tag latest over there, and you are done with that. So what you need to do now is save and run your pipeline. It will be saved, as we already said, with the Azure-pipelines-.yaml in your root folder, in your repo. So you need to pull it back in your local code. And you're sort of going to that screen when you click build and run. You're going to the first screen, actually, to the initial screen, and then you can go to Azure Pipelines, see that this is running, and at some point that will be finished and it will be done hopefully successfully. It will hopefully build our image and push it to Azure Container Registry. And how we can verify that? We can go to our next tab, the previous tab, sorry. I hope you didn't close it. Go again to this Azure. We were before in the access keys, right? We were before, where is it, my mouse? Here. Now we need to go to repos over here. I think I have it already with. We need to go to repos over here, select our Azure Docker repo. That's the name that we gave from the Azure DevOps, Azure Docker repo, sorry. Then select our latest tag. You see now that 346 and latest are actually the same thing. But we will always have a latest tag, which will always get a ping, get updated with any new push. So if we click on that one, we'll get in that screen that contains a few interesting things, for example, like the creation date. That was when I did this slide, obviously, or this presentation. This is a good idea to verify that indeed you got your latest build. It also contains the platform that we're going to use, and of course the manifest file. I didn't leave you any time, but there is nothing important to see in the manifest file. This is also here also something cool. You can use that command to always pull. I don't know why this is so some kind of other experiment. My Azure Docker registry should be Azure docker.azurecr.io. But anyway, you can always use that and the latest tag here to pull the latest image out of your registry. So that is it. Last part, I hope I didn't spend too much time, Ralph. The last part is how to create these Azure web apps and set up, configure continuous deployment to publish our Docker image, which is already in our Azure Container Registry, right? So
Yep.
again, easy thing. First, convenient search bar on top. We are searching this time for web app. This time, not like before, the web app is first in the marketplace. We choose that one. Very usual screen for the Azure. Create our resource. We select our subscription. Our resource group, we select the same resource group as before. I had another one, which I don't know what that is right now. Our web app name, what did I find? I don't know. Azure Docker was available. So our URL is azuredocker.azurewebsites.net. One change here, of course, we are not going to publish code. We can do that. We can push our code directly to a web app and it will work, but we are not going to publish code. We are going to publish a Docker container, an image that will convert to a container. So we choose that, which is our operating system. It was always Linux. I don't have any kind of animations there, but anyway, we choose our operating system. We choose our region. Actually, again, Germany West Central. Again, same thing. If you choose US Central, I think you get some free SKUs. Service plan, it seems I didn't choose anything, but yeah, feel free to choose whatever service plan you need for this, for the Linux plan that we chose here. And review and create. I'm trying to go a bit faster here. So again, next screen is the review screen, and there is a button create. You click also on that button create, and you are going not here. Again, you are going to this first screen, right? With a nice info here saying that on the left, somewhere right here, again, I can write somewhere right here, saying that we were preparing, or at the bottom, I don't know, don't remember. We are creating your resource right now. In a minute, it will be ready. When it's ready, you can write the name of the resource, find it, and once done, actually come to this screen over here. This is our app service, right? Our web app. And what we need to do here is actually no changes at all, just our container settings. This is the classic. When I created though, there was a beta of a new container settings screen. I don't know if it's right now active. I didn't check, but yeah, it's more or less the same, not much changing. So when we go to the container settings, we choose Azure Container Registry. Of course, this is where our image is. Screen changes completely. And now, simple drop-down menus, not much to do thing. We are selecting Azure Docker. This is the only registry that we have in this account, so it's rather easy. Our image, this is the Azure Docker. This is the repository, as we were calling it in the Azure DevOps. And at the end, we are choosing the latest tag. Of course, not any other tag, because we are not going to push again a tag with a name 346. This is going to change. The next one will be 347. So, but the latest tag will always be pinged, let's say, with an update that something new happened. So we select the latest tag and startup file. We don't need any of these because it's we defined that already. Enable continuous deployment, click save, and that was it. That was nothing else to do. We just wait a bit and we find it working in our URL. So as a summary, what we've seen today, we didn't create the .NET Core web app, but we did add Docker support. We've changed Dockerfile to use it outside Visual Studio, to use it for our Azure DevOps. We've set up an Azure Container Registry and prepared to accept requests for storing and retrieving images. We've set up Azure DevOps to build and push a Docker image to the Azure Container Registry. And at the end, we set up an Azure App Service, a web app, to use continuous deployment to retrieve an image from the Azure Container Registry and then publish it. Now, if you want some help, you can visit my blog. I'm not very active this last, I was about to say days, but I will say months, because I'm actually writing a book and it's kind of crazy. I never done that before, and it's kind of crazy how difficult it is. So, but you can visit my blog and search for Docker. You will get this article, which is more or less with some differences what we did today here. There is also some examples. And you will also get this article, this blog post, that is the Docker cheat sheet that I was telling you before. Additionally, you can follow me on Twitter, that's Twitter, sorry, and you can ask any question you want. That's my handle, George Kosmidis, and I think that is it. That should be time for a demo, but I think it should be actually time for questions. Let me check the YouTube now. If there is any question, I think there isn't, right? Okay. Okay, yeah, it seems so. So that's cool. Either I was completely boring or everyone understands everything. I don't know which one of those apply, but yeah. So I think if there are not any more questions, virtual stage is yours, right?
It looks like that it could be me now. Thank you, George, for having that such great experience. A little question. I was wondering during your talk, why didn't you do it just live? Because you've showed up any single step on your slides. It could have been done also on live so that folks have seen it then anymore. And beside that, the notification is the little bell in the left upper corner of your Azure portal where you have the progress indicator. And if you click on that, you'll have a small notification about the progress of the deployment of your Azure resource you're deploying at that point.
Actually, the full presentation is hands-on only. And that was maybe the plan at some point, that we will have maybe in 1 hour or 1 hour and a half event and do only that, including the repo, the Visual Studio Code and everything. But since the time was limited in only 30 minutes, I thought that it would be better to do that slide, that presentation, which I also did I think it was called in a conference last week, DevOps Pro or something, DevOps for Europe or something. So it sort of keeps me on track, right? It keeps the presentation smaller.
Great. It was great to have you. Okay, so let me switch over. Thomas, do you have anything to add here?
Not at that point, but yeah, thanks a lot to George. It was really interesting. And I really appreciate this working out, and hopefully many more meetups together like this.
That would be cool. Yep.
Yes. So now it's me, and I'm taking over the screen, George, if you don't mind.
Stop sharing.
Yeah, I've switched over already. I hope the share is now changing. Let me see.
Looks good.
Good, great. So, and YouTube is better than OBS Studio. Okay, so welcome to my talk about Azure Static Web Apps, and I'm using Blazor for it, and that's for reasons. First of all, I have to talk a little bit about the company I'm working for, and I have to tell you, I'm looking for a nice colleague. So if
maybe can I interrupt? As I
Oh,
see
yeah.
in the YouTube right now,
Yeah.
you're still sharing my screen, I think.
I'm not okay. For a sec. Great. Thanks for
And it's an ugly demo screen, so if it was a good one, I could leave it, but
No, it's not ugly. Okay, better stick with me. Okay. I have to stop screen sharing. So the NDI wasn't proper to catch it up.
and they are complaining about echo again.
Can be. Could be. Okay, so no, really not good. Okay. It worked before, damn it. Stop presenting. There. Oof. Oh, anyway, I will add my screen here.
Ich würde schon mal gerade nur das kleine Teams-Fenster übertragen.
Nee. Ist auch so, ich nehme meine Normal Source, also mein normales Fenster. Ich benutze jetzt nicht Teams NDI. Okay, so that should be changed now. So you can now see my screen, hopefully. Let me start over. Welcome to my talk about Azure Static Web Apps with Blazor. So my name is Ralf, and I'm showing you today a little bit about Azure Static Web Apps. In the first row, we will see what's about Azure Static Web Apps, what are the features, and what are the news about the Azure Static Web Apps nowadays. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about Blazor and why that's so interesting. And are you ready?
Just as an information, it's looking good now.
Yeah, it's working. Right. Thank you. Nothing works today. That's really awesome. Okay, and after talking about Blazor, I go on to hands-on with Azure Static Web Apps, and I'm going to show you how to deploy and which tools are in place. We're going to have a look on a few cool things. Well, let me start over with talking about Double Slash. Double Slash is a cool company. We have 3 branches, which is one in Munich where I'm working for, and the Munich branch is looking for a nice colleague, and me also is looking for a nice colleague. And if you're a .NET developer, a cloud developer, or if you're a software architect, please don't hesitate and contact me, or either go directly to our website, to company website doubleslash.de, and get in contact with our HR company. Okay, that said, let's have a short overview about what you may expect from me today. First of all, I've told you already, we're gonna see what Azure Static Web Apps is about. Then we talk about what's new. Then I will share my insights about why I've chosen to take Azure Static Web App with Blazor. And that said, I will go on to hands-on with that things. And there I will share also a few insights I've experienced during the work with Azure Static Web Apps since to now. What you can't expect from today is limited to time. You can't expect any deep dives today. But you're free to ask me any question, put it into the chat, and Thomas or George will hand it over to me at the end of the talk so that we can have a quick wrap over it, or they'll interrupt me and ask me the question so that the question will be answered right away. So please feel free to ask me anything about Azure Static Web Apps or Blazor, and don't force me to go too deep into, because we're limited in time. That said, let's start over. What are Azure Static Web Apps? Mainly, Azure Static Web Apps is a conjunction of a web app and Azure Functions. So both of them come together in a single place and are able to provide your website at that portion. And what is that for? You either can provide static content like static HTML, therefore you won't need any function, right? And on the other hand, there's also the beauty that you can use Azure Functions to provide like modern web apps, which are nowadays very, very often in the market and are used all over. And to make that offer a little bit better, there's also a continuous integration built into it already. If you're using GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps Pipelines, it doesn't matter. Your code goes directly onto Azure Static Web Apps and will be published there. And there are some more nice features, like you have a pull request preview feature within your static web apps. So that means you push the code with a pull request, and to have a glance of what your pull request will do to the static web app, there is a small hint of let's say a preview path where you can click on and have a look onto your web app to see what happenings there. So the features are, you can use it for web hosting, told already. You can integrate your API inside, which are the other functions are used for. You have the GitHub integration, I told already. It is globally distributed. You can globally distribute your static content so that you're nearer and closer to the customer. That's really important. You have free SSL certificates, which will automatically be renewed. And now it is that you can use custom domains with it. And it has integrated auth, which is awesome. So basically you have to choose which authorization provider you want to add to your project. You can either have it custom, or you will use one of those who are already inside, like Azure Active Directory, Twitter, GitHub, and so on. So you don't have to take care about that. You just have to invite people to your application, and they can log into it and use it. And you have roles. That means whenever you invite a user to an Azure Static Web App application, you can add a role to him. So like an administrator will have the role administrator and maybe authenticated. So whenever that user hits a route which could be protected by a load roles administrator, it will be passed through, and he's able to see and browse that web page. An authenticated user won't go there because the allowed role is just administrators. So that is really a nice feature, and I like it a lot. I don't show that today because we're so much limited in time. So, and the very great news of it is like 6 days old or something like that, or let me see, it is 7 days old. Azure Static Web Apps are generally available all over in Azure. So they are out of preview now. You can use it in production state, and that's awesome because Azure Static Web Apps gives you a real rapid way to develop a modern web app within really a short time, having all in place. You don't have to set up an IIS, you don't have to set up a web application, you don't have to set up an Azure function. It's all in one, and this really is a huge benefit to it. With that we are out of preview, a few nice new features are coming up as well. You now can bring in your own Azure functions if you like to. Why is that stands for? The Azure functions built into Azure Static Web Apps doesn't have the same abilities like a standard Azure function you can deploy on Azure natively. So if you want to break up those limitations, you have to use your own Azure function. And you can do so now. We now have fully support for root domains and custom root domains by validating by TXT records on the DNS server. So another awesome feature of Azure Static Web Apps is the Azure Static Web App CLI. And I'm going to demonstrate today on how that works. And you have your VS Code in place, and you're using it since ages, I guess. No, come on, it's a brand new tool, but you now have a very great extension for Azure Static Web Apps where you can develop your Azure Static Web App with and make it truly a convenient place to do coding, right? Okay, so first of all, we're going to go and see Azure Static Web Apps CLI. To do so, you have to have code within your on your computer locally already. And surely I want to show that for today with Blazor. That means I'm not going to touch any of that Angular stuff or React.js or something like that, which you also can use with Azure Static Web Apps. I'm going to show that with Blazor, okay? The Azure Static Web App CLI is nothing less than, let's say, proxy server, which a few additional functions on it, which allows you to locally test your function app completely by emulating the functions, the static web app itself, and routes the traffic in between that two services. And you're also able to emulate the authentication workflow, which gives you the security that your workflow is working right, which I'm gonna guess is very important if you're having any authentication and limited role access to any pages, that you can test it before locally. Imagine what that's stress up before. So that picture shows really exactly what Azure Static Web App CLI is doing for you. Okay, Blazor. So I'm in backend dev. I'm more focused on backends than everything else. I wouldn't call me a full stack developer, and to be honest, I've never met up with a full stack developer ever. So either you're a real keen app developer and front-end man, or you're a back-end man. Both of these roles are so much divided. I cannot say that I've ever met one having both technologies so close that I can say it is a full stack developer. But anyway, that's just my opinion. Please don't feel blamed for anything or something like that. So I've chosen Blazor because it is my home base. It is .NET C#. I can just use .NET C# to develop my front end with it. I like the idea of WebAssembly. It is really cool because that leads you into the possibility to have it also as a progressive web app, which is really nice. It is like a desktop application without being installed locally, right? You have the full function there, and that brings on also the offline functionality for your web app. So really cool. And I like the idea of components. So I'm an object-oriented programmer. Components are that much giving me hands-on to rapid development, and I'm able to reuse stuff I've developed in other projects, for instance, and that makes it more fast ever. And what Blazor is, it is not a JavaScript killer. None of our static web app with Blazor will work without JavaScript at the end. And I will show you how you can understand that. I will show you a file where it's clear that JavaScript is needed, because the reason for being needed in Blazor is with Blazor, you cannot modify any DOM object. And that said, you have to use JavaScript to modify any DOM object. So we are going to have dynamic web pages, and we have to edit DOM objects. That said, it's not a JavaScript killer, but it's a real nice thing, and I like it very much. Okay, let's start over with our demo. So no longer any boring slides. So not yet. We will come back to the slides for sure. Let's start over and let's deploy a simple static web app. To do so with a Visual Studio Code, you have to have a GitHub repository where your web app is deployed to or is stored into, and that must be public. And you have to have an access key that is linked to your Visual Studio Code. If that's not done, don't hesitate, because Visual Studio Code will guide you through that process to have an access token to your GitHub, and then you'll have access to your repository. So that's really easy. You don't have to be afraid of that. To use Azure Static Web Apps with your Visual Studio Code, please install the extension for Azure Static Web Apps first. Once that's done, you have to connect to your Azure subscription, and once that's done, you just easily select the extension with your Azure plate on Visual Studio Code, and then you click on that one. And I'm gonna use this subscription from Azure Dev, and I don't want to use an existing project. I just want to show you on how to use GitHub from it. So we're gonna go and use GitHub, and now it is asking me for access, and that green button went away already because I clicked OK, and now it is there. So going back here, we're opening it, and it brings me a selection of my available GitHub repositories. So next thing is that it asks me where to put that stuff, and I go and say here to my projects, and I go and create a new folder where I put it inside, and I select that repository location then. Okay, cool. So the repository was cloned, and I'm able to open it. That wasn't exactly what I wanted to show. Let me create a static web app. Open an existing. It's funny, they've changed already the extension a little bit. Okay. Static web apps. Go and create a static web app here. Static web app demo is a good one. And we want to go and say it's a Blazor application. And that does a real nice thing for you, because now you have to enter a few folders where your application will sit in. With Angular, it's another path than you have it with Blazor. In Blazor, the application itself, the web app, will sit in client. Then the distribution will be done on www root. And once that's done, the new web app will be created. And that's what it shows here. So now it is executing it. And I can now open GitHub, and you see here on my screen on the left that the web app is already in there. And let's see what's happening on my GitHub account. So GitHub shows me now the actions, and it has a workflow inside, and that workflow was done by our actions with Visual Studio Code. And now it's happening that there is a build job, and that build job will prep my application, and after that build job there will be a push onto my Azure static onto my Azure subscription, so that the static web app will be available and reachable there. That'll take now a little while. I'm happy to see it working. You see here build and deploy, so the build's almost done. The last time I demoed that, I was a little too fast to click onto that application, and it wasn't ready, and so I was guessing that my application wasn't deployed. So I hope this time I'm doing better. Let's see. So the fun of that is when we go back to our actions. When we go back to our actions, you can, this workflow file was generated for you. So you don't have to take care about that creation of this workflow file. It is built in. Later on, I will show you on how to go with Azure DevOps and deploy an Azure Static Web App with Azure DevOps, because that's also available for now. So you don't have to have a GitHub and a GitHub repository hosting your Azure Static Web App. You now can have a Git repository within your Azure DevOps where your Azure Static Web App is located in, and then we're gonna go and create a pipeline and deploy our web app. So the action says it's done, okay? It took 2 minutes and 3 seconds. And now we can visit our web page. How do we do that? Literally click right on that static web app, which should be available now. Let's see. Here it is. Nice. So what I've done is just that static web app, which is for all available with the demos with the Microsoft Docs, and you'll find attached to my presentation a slide with all the links I would share with you to have a direct connection to that repository too. So the counter demonstrates on how easy it is to manipulate the web page by a button click, and the fetch data demonstrates how the data is fetched from an API within that demo here. Okay, let's have a look into the code, right? That would be the interesting thing for now, I guess. Okay, so we have a few folders here, and that's what I've said before. As we set up the workflow asked us where is your app located and where will be the web app located and so on. And that's important because our application will sit in client. And let's have a look in client. I've told you that we are using here a Blazor, but we cannot exist without having JavaScript inside, right? That said, I'd love to show you that it is a true story, and therefore we go here. Look, what's that? This is the main document we're calling, and inside that all our magic happens. And you can see here that we are using JavaScript. So no JavaScript, no Blazor WebAssembly. Okay, that's done. So now, before we start over to do anything, we have to prep our local environment for development. And to do so, we should rename this one here and exclude that example out of it, because if we don't do that, the course will hit us and the API won't be found from the Blazor web app once we're running it in a debug modus. Okay. Then we have here a few, we're still within our, let me close that. We're still in our client, and we have within our client a few pages, and those pages were the pages we've seen before. So we have the counter, we have the index where just that set, right? And we have the fetch data razor. And this is the one where the API is first called. Okay? So what I like a lot about Blazor is, if you look to that extension, it is literally a razor file. And to give the path to that file, I just add a page. Then, like I'm doing with any C#, I add my using here. So in this case, I have a model which is in shared, and this is in project here as well. So we have here our shared model, that one, and this sits in shared. So I have to make a using of that library into my client, right? That's done by a using statement. Though we have to inject also an HTTP client. Why do we do so? We want to request our API. Okay, that looks pretty easy to me now. What do you say? If you have any question to that, please don't hesitate. Just shout it into the chat and I'll answer it right away. Then we have our API. So on any Azure Static Web App, the folder is always the same name. It's API, and there sits the function in. And you can decide what function it is. Yeah, you don't have to take care whether it is. You can use a Python, you can use Node.js, you can also use C#. It doesn't matter. It is a function, and if the function supports the language you're going to write your function in, that's not an issue. You can use it then. Okay, we have here the host JSON, I've told you already. Then we have that small little function inside. Yeah, that small little function. So here we have the string for it, and with a switch inside, and this is the function itself. So it really does nothing like bringing up some data, and those data are random. Okay, and that brought me to the point that I don't like it, and I wanted to extend it. And to do so, let's add another API. What about an API which brings us the actual weather, the real weather data into it? And I'd love to see the weather data for Munich, for instance. To do so, you just have to go here, click on the API, and then use just use your F1 to open up the command toolbar from Visual Studio Code, and then you go and say Azure Functions create function, and that's it. So we're going to use an HTTP trigger, and we name that trigger. Bear a sec with me. I've surely prepped my project already a little, so I want to reuse the name if you allow me. Okay, in the API. Okay, and let's name it get open weather data, right? I would say that suits, because the thing we are going to use is an API of that, and create a new HTTP trigger. Yes. Provide the namespace. That's important, because with the right namespace, you'll have access to the right things. So we're going to go for Blazor.api, which is also in the weather forecast, was also in the weather forecast seeing. Let's have a look onto the weather forecast, which is here. And there's also the namespace Blazor.api. So we use the same thing here. And now Visual Studio Code gives us a fully equipped API, and guess, okay, you're right, I don't want to let that code stay there. So I'm gonna exchange the code, right? Look, this is our simple API. It really has not much inside. There's the function name, which is here. There's a typical function app call, and here's some code inside, and it's nothing like a simple call to our web API provided by Open Weather API. Okay, that's it. It looks like we are missing something here, right? So like I said, it's an C# project. We're gonna add the things we are missing, and now there might be a few more things we are missing, right? We have to add maybe a few NuGet packages to it, and what we also have to do is we have to add a model later on for our response. Okay, so we do not have JSON Newtonsoft inside our project yet. Let's change that. For that, you can use a nice extension like I've done here, but you don't have to. You can do that manually for sure as well. I like to use it, and it's a real nice extension. And you go and select just the project, and then you go and restore so that the project knows about the new NuGet package, and we'll add it by and this looks much more nicer now. We have now the dependency, we have now our API. We now want to add a page where the data will be displayed, I guess. And to do so, we will add just a new file to our pages. That's pretty easy. You just right click on that the file, and then you go and say file name. I'm just copying the file name on previous, so that's not, so just new file, and then we go and use that file name I've used before, and then we put in some code. Okay, here's my code. It's not magic. I will rush through it to explain you a little bit. So first of all, we have our page path here above. Then, we are using Blazor shared, and but it's not used. Looks some weird to me. Okay. Then we give it a few HTML because we want to display text and so on. And then there's something funny because I just put an if here, and that means if the open forecast, so if any issue is by having an open forecast being null, we will display just an error message, right? And if the open forecast is not null, come up with a small table. So we use here our just HTML, and then we go and bind our objects to the HTML, and that will be displayed later on and filled automatically. Isn't that, I like that so much. Like you can put the strings here, and then we put some timing in here, then everything else. And then if you look on that, we do again an if, and we request whether the alerts portion of that object will be null, don't display it. And if it's not null, display it. So that's really easy. And look at the code above. It is really that easy. So I'm not really concerned about developing stuff with Blazor. So it looks so easy. It feels very easy, and it is easy to me. So look here. We have here an object that's called Open Weather Forecast, which is initialized as Open Forecast. I've told you earlier, we need to have an object maybe, or a class, a model, which is going to give us the fields and all that stuff. So this is really just normal development of code, right? So give it what it is asking for. I do so, and this is the class it is referring to. And you see here as well, Newton JSON, we have an issue here. Okay, that's due to you have to restore the project first. Okay, so why is that? We have here a shared the shared folder, and Newton JSON is not in here, so we do the same trick like we did before. We go here and we add NuGet, and we go for Newton Soft, and we select Newton Soft JSON and that one, and then it's being added, and it's here, and it is successful added. So once we built it, it'll be not an issue anymore. Let's have a look on our page. Here's our page. We have now an object, the object, and now is the object, let's say now the using is also being used, and Visual Studio shows it by highlighting it and not hiding it anymore. So about my code, what I like a lot is you can do coding within a page, what I've did here as well. So that one is important to me because I want to show small icons displaying what weather is to be expected. You know that from all weather pages, it's still the same. And Then we have an initialize stuff here where I want to check whether the data will come or will not come, and that's important. If the API fails to display any data, the customer needs to be informed, and so I'm doing that by using the onInitialize async function, which is a standard function within Blazor Azure Static Web Apps. Okay. What I'm doing here is I'm calculating the time and the time zone so that the display times are matching to the time zone I'm located in, where I'm grabbing the weather from. Okay, that's the whole trick. So nothing special, I would say. Good. Let's see whether it will work or not. Okay. To do so, we have an easy tool here. We just go and say launch our Azure Static Web App, and the Visual Studio Code will do the trick for me. It's a bit annoying because the Edge won't display the page. So see, debug console. Where is it? So now I can go to localhost. Why is that completely empty? Problems found. Okay. There is the error message I was awaiting. Type namespace Newton soft code wouldn't be found. Okay, it's not here. We have to. I've edited. I knew I edited it. Let's see. Oh, mistyping, no. Oh, damn it, I was fast clicking. Nougat. Come on. Same shit all the time. When you do demos, you go on having stress if it's not working. That one, that version, and I want to have it here. Okay, restore. That should work better. Let's go here. Blazor shared as well. It's okay. It's green now. Now everything is green, and now it should work. So let's try again. Start. Okay, that won't work. Now it's running, and now it states me where to visit my web page. Okay, let's go for our local. So this one is the one on Azure, and now let's go for the local one. Okay, it works. Looks lovely, right? The counter. Oh, cool. The fetch data. Oops. Why isn't that working? Okay. Why isn't that working? I can tell you a little while later. Just let me add to our nav a small a link to our fetch data, to our weather. And do you remember the path to it? It was current weather. Was it? Let me see. Yeah. Double check is good. So we just go to our nav. We just have here the href. It's just HTML. I do nothing else. Save it, and then it's done. Okay, we've figured out that our API is not working, right? That's true, because Visual Studio Code won't start up your API yet. To do so, you have to have the extension for Azure Functions inside, and then you go and say attach. And now you see in my terminal that the Azure Functions are shutting up as well. And here we go, we have our two functions inside, and when we browse our website now, it should work fine. So let's see. We have to reload because, oh, the data is already there. And let's have a look onto that. If I wasn't, oh yeah, there's an issue. Okay, I know why. A rendering issue. Okay. Okay, cancel. So the first thing is I have here an API key, and I have here a readout of my environment variable. So being able to read out that variable, I have to add it to my local settings, right? So let me do that first. I'll stop the projects, both. Going back to files, going to log settings, going here, adding that variable. So it is reachable and it's JSON. It has to be comma separated. So now it is. Now my key is available for the API and it should work. And let me check now the if is not null. Okay, go for that and that should work, right? So we're open close here. Yeah, looks good. A little bit good. Okay. So the API key wasn't available to the application. While that happens, it states an object has no reference, and it's right. It doesn't have a reference. It must fail. Okay. Yeah, complain. Okay. Let me see, is it working? Yeah, looks good, right? So the little things with the icons was that one here. This is the weather prediction for the next few days, and it's done for Munich. Nice, easy to extend and an Azure static web app, right? Okay. Yeah, I know, it's okay. So now we have that other cool thing in place. It is Azure CLI. I have installed that already, so there you have to go to a GitHub repository. You have to download it for either Windows, Linux, whatever you want to, and then you can make just use of it, right? So let me change the project because we're in another project right now. I don't know right there. Okay, like demo VS Code, and the structure is that one which is provided by GitHub, and we have to go inside and look. So the documentation says this will do the trick. Let's see. Okay, it states me an URL and says I'm ready to go. Okay, let's go to our browser and just let's open it. So if I was right, it was 4280. Let's see. Nope, it's not there. Why is that? We are using Blazor. With Blazor, that doesn't work. I've tried a lot and I figured out if I do this here, if I go and say isn't it? It is static. Okay. If I go and say .NET run watch. Oh, sorry, my fault. I have to go to the correct folder for sure. And if I say then .NET run watch, What that does is bringing up, it should, it didn't. Unable to start Kestrel.NET Run Watch. Why? Failed to bind to address already in use. Okay, we didn't terminate this one. We have to terminate. And we didn't terminate that one, so my fault. Let's go back. Let's run over. Let's go and see .NET Run Watch. Much better. Now, since we have our application here and the application is coming up, we're gonna go and give our CLI a hint that we want to use that application, which is a Blazor application, right? Okay, to do so, I've prepped the command already, so let's go here. So, okay, it should start up now. Let's have a look on our browser, whether the page will load or not. Still looks weird to me. Why is that? So to prove that I'm not lying, we can go here and check that the application is running. It is running. That's a miracle to me, because I don't understand on how that's happening right now. We are not okay, and let's go into client as well. And then let's execute that command already. And now it should also display me when I am visiting the page. Oh, no, it's not a miracle. It is HTTP. My fault. It's HTTP. So we've started up our Azure CLI, Azure Web App Azure Static Web App CLI, and we're running now our application on that. That's cool. So looks like it works. Not. Why is that? You see here now that we have nice, glimpsy output of our CLI. That's really cool, but it is not doing what we're requesting it, right? We want to have our Azure Static Web App in full blown. I don't want to have any lags. I really want it completely. So to do so, let's start it over again. And now I add where the API is located. And to do so, you also have to have the Azure Function tools on your computer. Otherwise, it won't work. Can we return? Okay. So let's see what's happening. It shoots up my localhost 7071. And if you remember, our local settings said that's our API path. Okay, so it is now shooting up also our API for us. So that's a cool thing, right? Let's see whether it works or not. Oh, okay, it wasn't ready. Why not? That one's ready. Cannot connect. IRS server. Okay, is it still running? Is it? It is not. Is it running? Oh no. But not. It is. And I don't have the option to stop it. Let's do it. So if you prep your demos, everything works nice and easy, calm, and you don't have anything to hassle with. And then you do the demo, and demo god says nope. Okay. Still in a misconfiguration here. I'm not having another Visual Studio open, but it still says it can't connect to. Why is that? Should not. Okay. Good. Let me stop that first. Then go here. Then we start this one. And now we start that one. Oh gosh. Sure. Why isn't nobody's saying that I'm just an idiot? Let's do it again. Ooh. Once he's in the right directory, it works fine. Okay. Let's see. Oh, it works. So now we have Azure CLI in place, and with Azure CLI in place, Azure Static Web App CLI in place, our complete environment is running up. With Blazor, that's a little bit tricky because you have to start first the server where the binaries are provided from, and that's also an issue to there is no automatic pushing of your changes. So with Angular, for instance, you have that automatic change to your live website while you're coding. This is not given on Blazor. I'm very sorry about that, but that's the case. So I've given you an overview about how that looks like. We haven't seen anything on the Azure portal yet. So let's have a look on a glance, a quick look onto Azure portal. How looks our web app there. So we go here and we're looking for resources, which is named like the one we've executed before. So for our forsake, we have to I have it not here. So let's have a look for how was it called? Static web apps. And there we go. And we have here 2. That's the last one I've just set up with you together with Visual Studio Code. And how does it look like? I've told you before, you have different abilities on that one. So one is the role management. I've also explained to you, it's automatically activated. So you just have to invite someone to your application. You have to select here the one authority provider you want to use for. And as you see, there are a bunch of them already in. Then you have to select the domain, which is the base route, and you have to select a role. If you don't select a role, it's automatically authenticated. The role authenticated, right? That's a default role. Azure Static Web Apps give you by default the possibility to use login by adding to the I'm gonna show you. This one is deployed. So you literally go and say that out login. That should be enough. Okay. Fetch data. Go to out login. Okay. Okay. I have a custom routing inside, so it's not going to show. But it automatically is inside. I've explained earlier, I won't show it, but this is the place where you go to when you want to manage that. Then you have the possibility for different environments. You can add now custom domains with TXT value validation with your DNS server. You surely can attach application insights into, and for sure you have the ability to set application settings like you have with any other web app as well. In my case, it would be the API key for the weather extension, right? Okay. I told you you're able to just deploy your application by having it with Azure DevOps, right? I'm going to show you now. First of all, I want to finish my code here, and I want to upload it, because that means it can be done automatically. And now I want to see that our application is also able to be pushed automatically once I push it to our GitHub, right? So let me so I committed my changes. Now I'm pushing the changes up to our source control, and once that's done, our GitHub shall represent that we're receiving a push. I have to go to the right window, which is here, and you see that was the initial commit I have done. And now you see that the workflow is going and will deploy the changes we made together into my GitHub, right? Okay, great. That's awesome. We won't wait for it, or we will come back a little later. So to keep that changes with us, a little bit lazy, we now have to go to Azure DevOps. Let me do the little and we will go and add a new project. And with that new project, we just go and I will demo the deployment of a static web app using Azure Azure DevOps. The names are knotting my tongue. Now we have an repository, and we have the ability to clone in a repository from, let's say, GitHub, for instance. So we do, and I just import that repository now and make it available in my DevOps. That'll take a while, small. Oh, it's done already. And now we have the code, exactly the same code like we've seen before in my Visual Studio Code. Let's see if it's right, if I'm not a liar. We go here and we have the weather forecast function, which is my custom function. No, the get open weather function is my custom function, which was not in place before, and now we have it here, including the client and all that stuff. That's great. So now I've told you that we are able to use Azure DevOps to deploy a static web app as well. Let's do so. That's pretty easy. You nothing have to do like I did before. You just go and you just clone the repository, and now we have to use our Azure portal to create a web app. So we go to our Azure portal. We go here. You see there's nothing in, and we just go and add a resource like static web app. Here we go. We create a static web app, and Oh, I'm sorry, I haven't shown you the pricing tiers. So there is a free pricing tier, and you have a paid one that'll change over time, I guess. But it is like it is for now. So let's see what name we can take here. Oh. Looks like nobody have ever used that name before. That's cool for me. I go and use the free tier plan to deploy it. And then, this is important, you have to click on other, okay? And now we go for tags. Tags are not interesting to me, not yet. So if you do that in production, I recommend you highly to use tags so that you can find your resource groups there. And what's happening now, we have the review. I'm okay with the name, I'm okay with the region, and the SKU is also fine for me as well. So now I go and deploy my static web app, and that'll take a little while. Okay, that's done. So now our resource is available, and what we have now is we have a deployment token, and that's the trick on how Azure DevOps is able to set up that deployment, as well as it is able to as it is able to GitHub Actions. Okay, so we've prepped well now. We have the token already. Now we have to have a little YAML. Let's go and go for the YAML. The first thing is that we have to name the token. Yeah. We go the other way around. I guess I name it just deployment. Oh, what? Deployment token could be a name. Keep this value secret. Okay. I hope everybody copied that already. Save. Now our variable is available, and guess what? I have prepped something. Here we are. What's important to us now? So you've learned that we have an application, and that application is, right, it's client. So we have an API, and I've told you also an important point. We have www root, where our output location is located, right? Remember that when you go for a first time having a Blazor application deployed by your Azure DevOps pipeline. So this is the first try. Let's see if it runs. And if you're into Azure DevOps and all that stuff, and you've deployed ever a pipeline or used the pipeline for Azure Static Web Apps, for Azure Functions, you might remember there's a bunch of things you have to do, right? I was concerned the first time I tried that out that it won't do, because there's just that tiny small little thing doing the stuff, and look, it works. It just does the job. It will now build my static web app like it is doing with GitHub Actions. It looks all the same, almost. And let's cross fingers that our static web app will be available within 30 seconds, let's say. I hope I'm not bothering you. I have to drink a little. And I know we're much over time, but I've really loved to show you all that awesome stuff which is coming with Azure Static Web Apps and using Blazor. And you know what? We have to celebrate, because Blazor just have become a year old. It is on 12th on May the 12th. It was 1 year old. Okay, it looks great to me. So it looks like that the complete project is going to be deployed, right? It was built, set up, and so on. Still running. And here you see the www root folder and so on. So all the information is very important. Here's the API, so that's also set. Look, finishing upload. That's cool. I haven't yet have a chance to see whether the one is faster than the other. So we're here 10 minutes 10. 10 minute 4. Come on, DevOps, can do it. No, it's paused. Great, so it'll be pushed now. Thomas, do we have any questions yet?
Not seeing any questions in the...
Do we have still viewer?
We do have still viewer. Yeah.
I'm so happy that you're here with me. Thanks a lot. That makes it more easy for me, and it doesn't feel that alone then. So I hope that pipeline is running through, and I'm coming to an end now, because I've given you a lot of my insights and shared my experience by developing Azure Static Web Apps, especially with Blazor. Oh, here we go. Which I like a lot. Still, it has its problems and issues, but it's for me it's really a great thing. Look at that. This is the link I've clicked on in the Azure portal, and it works. It is here. What won't work is the thing. Thank you. Is the thing that the Weather API can't work. Why is that? I've told you already. You have to add a config file here. So we have to have our configuration there. Let me grab it out from our project. Folders, localhost. Let me grab that one. We go and add that one here, and we go and copy the key here. I really don't care about the key, but I don't want to have it within my repository. Okay, that's set, and I save it. And to demo purposes, it will be the same message, right? You have here object reference not set to an instance of an object, right? Which is the case because you don't have the API key inside, and though it can't go. Let's reload. What happens? Is this saving? Yeah, looks great. It works. That's done. Okay, let's wrap. You've seen how to create an static web app using Visual Studio Code and deploy it to your Azure subscription using Visual Studio Code. You've seen Azure Static Web App CLI doing the local job for you, serving you your API, your web app to demonstrate that's working and so on by shooting up all the services for you. You've seen the same on Visual Studio, on how to start up Visual Studio locally or Azure Static Web Apps locally with Visual Studio so that you're able to explore your website and your API, whether it's working or not. You've seen how to extend an Azure Static Web App by providing another API into it, how to extend the web app itself by adding a new page, and I've shown you how to use Azure DevOps to deploy an Azure Static Web App. I guess that's a lot, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Beside all the facts that I was hassling a little with my demo god, but I'm gonna take out now the session, and we'll pray a little to him so that he's more convinced to let me do the job next time on a better way. Who am I? My name is Ralf, and I'm happy to have you on site. All my contact details will be are available on the slides as well, and for sure here are many useful links I will share with you as well at the end of this stream. We'll add the time codes to it so that you have easy to jump to the talks and to the separate sections within the talks, and we also will share within the description our notes so that you have everything in place. I'm a bit sad if there are no more questions here. That means that interaction with YouTube is not the same like having people within Teams, right, Thomas?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh. Okay.
Take that in consideration.
Yeah. So bear a sec with me. I'm going back to the open screen. Here we are. What's up? What's next? Thomas, the next thing usually within a meetup is this, right? Having a cheers with you all. And I hope you enjoy one with me now. It was fun for me to demonstrate. George, how did you like it?
Oh, it was super. It was a multi-flavored talk, let's say, presentation. So it contained a bit of everything. And yeah, no matter what, I'm always impressed by the easiness of either the pipelines or the actions. It's like almost developerless, right? You don't need to be a developer to actually set up either pipelines or actions to build and deploy something in Azure. That was one thing that I can keep. The other thing is that, yeah, static web apps rule, and if you have that ability, why not? You should definitely use it. Why I'm saying that? Because we are living in an API world, right? We are consuming endpoints to show data, which means that gives us an opportunity to have a static app actually that just consumes new data every once in a while. So the era of having an application like web forms is completely done. Even if you go to an MVC app, you're actually doing the same. You have an API with endpoints on one side and an application that consumes this endpoint on the other side. So why not just go Blazor and consume your APIs, your endpoints to show and interact with the data? I think I would also agree with what you said at some point in the beginning that it's hard to find. I don't want to say impossible, but throughout my experience, it's hard to find a dev that it's equally very good in the backend and in the front end. Very good in .NET, C Sharp, or and Angular, for example. Usually there is a specialty. You are very good at one thing. Yeah, I might be mistaken there, and there might be exceptions, of course, but I haven't met one up until now, to be honest. So
I'm just wondering at which I'm bad.
sorry?
I'm just wondering if I'm bad at Angular or at .NET.
Yeah, I know I'm bad at Angular. I know I'm bad at front end things. I like TypeScript and I write a lot, but yeah, I'm not that good as I am in the backend. And I think Blazor gives us an opportunity. It might not be a JavaScript killer. I can't hide that most probably I would maybe even like that, but it's not a JavaScript killer, at least for the technologies that need to be used. For the developer side, though, it can very well be a killer, meaning that you can forget about writing JavaScript. You still need to debug it sometimes. You already saw us how you migrate, let's say, these object reference, null reference errors to the front end to a browser. But at least you don't need to write that much JavaScript, especially nowadays. It's that Blazor is 1 year old. There are so many controls out there that you can most probably do anything you want from the backend. So yeah, I'm really happy and excited about Blazor, and it's a very well and very impressive match with the static web apps. So yeah, I'm really happy about this presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, for me it is also fun. I won't say that it is a replacement for Angular or Vue or all that stuff. It won't be. It has its benefits. Azure Static Web Apps itself has also its benefits, but there are also limitations. So, I do, to put it into the right to put it in the right corner. I'm not here to say don't do anything else than Azure Static Web Apps if you use a modern web application or something like that. It is a way to go, but it's not the only one. You know that Azure has several abilities or services where you can use to make the same things on another way and maybe more accommodate for the developer doing that stuff. So the technology stack must fit to the developer who has the task to develop such a thing. And if you feel that .NET and Blazor goes along with that for you, Azure Static Web Apps can be the thing you have to watch and have to try out for my opinion. Yeah, Thomas, what's your opinion about that? And where's your beer?
My beer is here.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Already
Cheers, man.
Shown it to you. Cheers.
I don't have a beer, but I have some water. I don't know.
Cheers to you also, George.
So I'm very curious to see where, like, not only Blazor but the whole WebAssembly story is going.
Yeah.
For me, currently, it's not there yet. Or yeah, I mean, I'm watching from the other side. I am an Angular developer as well. I'm not seeing like the benefit yet for me to switch back, basically. But like the whole WebAssembly concept on its own is super interesting, especially for hopefully for migrating legacy apps at some point. So yeah, it's definitely cool what Microsoft is doing in that space.
Yeah, that's a true story. Okay, folks, we've overtime an hour again, and I hope you do not mind with us, but we hope that you have had a lot of information you were looking for and that you have had fun with us looking onto those technologies. It was fun for me to talk about that. You might experience that while I was doing my demo. For me, really, it is fun to have you here, and we're looking forward as time is going and growing, and the vaccination is also doing more. That we're coming to the point that we will be in person once again. Fingers crossed, and we're looking much forward to that. Having that cheers with you and a pizza and nice talks on the beginning and at the end. That would be the thing we're missing a lot, isn't it, Thomas?
For sure, yeah. That's Dennis saved some, or he now has to have a lot of money for pizza. So
the budget is still there. Okay, folks,
we are back.
Thanks a lot. I will shut down the stream now. It was a pleasure to have you on site, and we're going to have a little beer now beside that, thank you for visiting us. Subscribe and don't forget to ring the bell that you like that as well.